Production and factory settings bring their own set of hurdles for wireless connections. Harsh conditions, both indoors and out, create a daunting task for engineers to work through. Now let me tell you, those engineers ain't looking to back down from a challenge like this, no sir. This here's where we gather round to tackle them hurdles, swap thoughts, and lend a hand. Welcome to the Industrial Wi-Fi Shop with your hosts, Scott and Jeremy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Industrial Wi-Fi Shop. My name is Scott McNeil, and with me, as always, is the incorrigible, incomparable, and any other adjective I can come up with, Jeremy Baker. Say hi, Jeremy.
Some people say he's so famous, he's infamous.
Infamous. Yeah, I'll buy that. Infamous. Wait. Infamous or infamous? There's a difference.
Well, they didn't know it in Three Amigos, so
That's true. Because, they said it was more than famous.
that's right.
This is episode 24 with modern tools for industrial wireless. So a couple things that I want to talk about before we jump into today's episode. WLPC Phoenix is literally right around the corner, about a week away. So the main conference is February 17th through 19th, and the boot camps are 14th through 16th. Have fun, guys. I unfortunately will be on site, and I can't make it this year. Very, very sad. Wyco, rocking my Wyco colors today. Wyco has got their event schedule up for 2026 already. There's more to come on that. I have a bunch of the dates in the show notes. Plus, you can hit wyco.org for the official calendar. A lot going on in Europe this year, Canada, and a few dates for the US have been announced. Ali and I are working on Wyco, North Carolina, so I'm excited for that. That's going to be a lot of fun. And then don't forget to check out our document library. We've got, some nice little fun reference tables in there and some best practices documents and whatnot to help you stay on your game. With all that being said, this is episode 24, Click Survey, Modern Tools for the Industrial Universe. So today we have with us Jerry Ola. Am I saying that right, Jerry? Ola?
You nailed it. Yeah,
awesome.
You got it.
Can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do, who you are, how you do it, who you hang out with, who your friends are, and various other personal details like social security number, address, and personal phone number?
In no particular order. So Jerry Ola, I am head of technical stuff, is what I like to say at Hamina, at least for the US side of our operations. So yeah, anything that involves anything technical product related, things like that kind of falls into my realm. So I do a lot of demoing of Hamina products. If you're not familiar with Hamina Wireless, if you want to check it out, hit me up, and happy to show you some things, answer your questions. Attend a lot of events because of that, and get to hang out with folks like yourselves. Go to things like Wyco and WLPC, and looking forward to that coming up here really shortly. Based out of the U.S. here in Wisconsin. I don't know. Anything else you guys want to know about me or your audience would want to know? Been in the Wi-Fi space for many years. Have definitely worked in some industrial spaces. Happy to talk about some of that kind of stuff and share some war stories there. I've been in the Wi-Fi space here for 15 plus years. Lost count a while ago. I've worked in everything from actually got started really in industrial. That was where some of the first projects and sites I worked on was in industrial, and then went and worked in different healthcare spaces. Obviously lots of office spaces, all the way into like cruise ships, which I think is an interesting tie-in to the industrial world. I don't know if you guys have worked on any kind of cruise ships.
In a past life, I worked for a college, and we're here on the coast, and we have in that college a very strong marine sciences division, and as such, they have a 135-foot research vessel.
Oh, okay.
And when we first got that, when I say we as it, but when the college first got that particular ship, it was replacing their old one, which was a revamped fishing trawler. But this one was actually a purpose-built research vessel. I mean, it was just basically a tiny ship.
Mhm.
And I say tiny, but 135 foot, that's a good sized vessel. And that the incomplete network had been gutted on it. And so we had to rebuild the network, right? Because the college they bought it from was another major 4-year university. And so they ripped out all their stuff, which makes sense. And so I was fortunate enough, I got to redo the entire network on there, integrate SATCOM into the network, and then actually put wireless out on several decks. And that was an interesting thing. And that was probably because I was still in the IT universe at that point. That was my first real interface with highly reflective environments and the false readings that can give you, and trying to control that on multiple on 2 different decks, and then interior and exterior. And then we also put an outdoor 5 gigahertz link. So as soon as it was pulling into port on the river, it would link up with college systems, and they could pull all their data and every as if it were hardlined into the college network. Matter of fact, the way I had it set up. They could be, as soon as they came around the bend in the river, if the bridge was up, if the drawbridge was up, they would link up, and that's probably half a mile away. So they could,
Wow.
it just auto linked up, and so they could, all their systems could start uploading their information and whatnot. It was a lot of fun, but it was a hell of a challenge.
Hmm.
But that, like I said, that was kind of my first experience with real heavy reflection that I would then go on to see later when I got recruited into the OT universe by one of my longtime mentors. That's where I was like, oh, okay, I think I might know what's going on here. I've experienced this once before. Let's dive a little deeper into it. So yes, and from what you're saying, I definitely see the correlation there.
Yeah, it's an interesting environment for sure. Yeah, usually when I mention like working on a cruise ship, obviously people think it's all oh, you're so lucky. But man, you work on a cruise ship that's not in service, that's in dry dock, and that's like almost getting into like a war zone type territory of like it's a rough environment from an industrial standpoint when they put those things in a dry dock with the what those ships go through. It's pretty wild. Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
a
yeah,
it's
you're
not an
basically just
enjoyable cruise.
working in a sweat box.
Yeah, with no air moving. Oh, it
Mhm.
sucks.
Yep. You're lucky if you got
I've
running
only I've
water
only
and things like that.
done some wired networking stuff in there, some firewall config. But it definitely, in like a ship, right? You've got ballast control and like all those things. There's all sorts of control systems on there, so it's all like the operational stuff. But yeah, like you think cruise ship, and you're like, okay, we're gonna do the electric slide, and like it's gonna be party time, and it's
We're
like,
gonna catch a show after work. Yeah.
yeah, I could just see my wife being like, oh, that sounds like so much fun, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna be sitting in an engine room for
Did you get the drink package? That's the important thing.
the electrolyte drink package.
Yeah.
So, Jerry, one of the things I really wanted to talk about today is you guys at Homina have released a new device called the Clip.
We have.
And it's a smaller device, and it's for real. After reading the data sheet on it and looking at it and whatnot, physically it's a smaller size. What would you say? It's about the size of a cell phone?
Yeah, actually very similar. Actually, if we take I'm actually wearing the clip here right now, but yeah, if we take it, hold it up for the video viewers here, it is right about the size of my iPhone 15 Pro, not a Max or anything like that. It's actually slightly smaller, I would say, than that. But yes, very kind of purpose built in that sense for the size to fit in your pocket, just like a phone would.
So one of the things, I mean, well, several things caught my eye about it, but a big part of that is the fact that you're not having to physically cable it to your device.
Yes.
It's connected via Bluetooth. The form factor is actually really nice, and while I haven't had a chance to actually physically handle one, it looks really well built and robust. And does it have an IP66 rating on it?
Not 66, 64. So
Okay,
it does have
IP64. Okay.
IP64, which is, dust and protection against like water splashes from any direction.
All right, so
So,
don't throw it in the
um,
pool.
yes, yeah, it's
Okay.
not full waterproof in that sense, but yes, it is meant to be able to go into some pretty rough environments and be able to survive that kind of stuff. It also doesn't have any kind of active cooling, so you don't have to worry about, yeah, the fans and things getting sucked
Well,
into
and
it
that
or something
was
that
that
way.
was my next thing is it looks to be all solid state and it's got like the heat venting on the top, not
Yep.
unlike a heat sink.
Yeah.
And physically it looks really durable. So is that like a rubberized casing that it's in?
Not
Or
rubber, but it is a very yeah, durable plastic that's on
okay.
here. So yes, it is meant to be able to be it does have some certification. I forget the IEC like certification for free fall drop height of like
Okay.
4 feet is what it's rated for. Hopefully it will survive more than that, but that's what it's certified and tested and rated for. So yeah, it can fall onto, a concrete surface or solid metal surface. Hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, it should survive that type of a fall pretty easily. But the biggest thing is, yeah, I mean, because of the fact that it's called a clip, we actually designed the clip to be able to just clip onto any type of surface, whether it's your pant loop or in this case, I'm going to clip it onto my loop on my vest. And now with this being powered on, it can wirelessly connect directly to like an iPhone or an iPad over BLE. So there's no kind of clunky pairing process, unpair, repair, all that kind of stuff. The on-site application drives all of that. The humming on-site application drives all that to just be able to discover that clip and connect to it automatically. So
What's the
very
what's the
seamless.
battery life on that? And then how does it charge?
Yeah, the Humming clip will get you about 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours of continuous survey time, and then it will recharge over USB-C. Uses the power delivery, so it can charge very fast. And if it's powered off and charging, even if it's all the way down to zero, it'll recharge back up to fully in about an hour. And it can be used in both. You can connect an external power source to it. It can be used while it's charging essentially. So if I
Oh,
want to take
okay.
like an Anker battery pack or something, put that in my pocket, I can plug that in. So if I want to go more than 5+ hours of continuous surveying without having to stop, you could plug in like a battery pack to it as well to give it all day battery life if needed.
So it's like the Olympic torch where the baton race where like you survey till you can't go anymore and then you just pass it off to somebody.
Yep, yep, exactly.
So,
Yep.
well, now that we've kind of really got a good physical description of it, what does this thing actually do? So,
Yeah.
I got an appointment with the Bobs. What do you actually do here?
So the Hamina clip is similar to our current hardware, which is the Osmium Nomad. Both are very purpose-built site survey devices. So the Osmium Nomad, if you're not familiar with that guy, this is a four radio Wi-Fi measurement device, tri-band, all that good stuff. But this uses, the traditional, we'll say, kind of strap mechanism to carry. You've got a USB cable that goes from this into your device. So what we aim to do is create, something that's a little simpler, potentially a little bit more budget friendly type device, and just kind of modernize it in that sense of being able to leverage modern technology like BLE to be able to enable that communication. So that's really kind of where the clip was kind of born out of is okay, we've got this. Great device already, the Nomad that's, purpose built, but we wanted to make something that's a little bit more ruggedized as well as a little bit easier to use, a little bit lower from a budget conscious side of things to get into, kind of lower those barriers all over, right? Easier to operate, be able to put this into anybody's hands, no cables, no straps, anything like that. So it's just all about simplifying and making this type of technology more easily approachable and easily accessible to a larger audience.
So this is to be used in conjunction with the Hamana survey software
Yes, with Humina
and
on site. Yep.
the Hamana onsite, and it just sends all of its data via that Bluetooth connection to your iPhone or iPad in order to populate your survey on your screen. Correct?
Yeah. Do you want me to try and do a little live demo here? Could we try
Yeah.
that?
Let's
Let
do
me
that.
show you what this looks like because, yeah, at least for the folks that are checking out the video, if you're listening audio only, um, maybe want to pull that up if you want to check out this. But we'll try to describe it here as good as we can here. So I'm just going to share my iPhone screen, and as part of this, we've got the clip already connected. So you can see there, it's showing me my available devices. You can see it's connected. The RSSI reading that it's showing me there is actually the Bluetooth, the BLE connection RSSI. So yeah, when you talk about, the distance, right, of where I can be from it, you can see at this kind of close proximity what my RSSI is. If I move this away pretty quickly, you can see as I'm kind of reaching my phone away from my
What
body,
class
you
of
know,
Bluetooth are we talking about? Is this BLE or standard Bluetooth?
this is BLE. Yep. We're
Okay.
using the modern BLE connection type. So there's no pairing or anything. It's literally just discovery and then able to connect. So we've got all the certificate and everything. All that
Okay.
complexity is already baked into the application, into the device, so they know each other, right? So these are built for each other to be able to work with
So
each other and seamlessly connect.
while typically you're going to be wearing this and having this very close to you, what kind of range are you looking at of connection of this device to an iPhone or iPad?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't done honestly a ton of testing of like how far away from you can get it because really the focus has been around the operator and the device, the iPhone or iPad being, part of the same connection, right? Or the same
Okay.
person. But, talking with folks like Jeremy, has already the gears have already been turning for him of being able to do some other things with it. So, yeah, we're starting to look at, okay, what other things can we do with this? But yeah, here's like a survey that I completed recently of, well, I had the clip on me. In this case, I had a clip to my belt and just walk the site here, and you can see we're getting really nice detailed results here of the signal. But yeah, we could certainly get some distance between this, but the purpose for doing site surveys is generally going to be that you're going to have the device at least physically on you, and then being able to walk
Now,
with
is
the device.
this
If that makes
this
sense.
tap and turn or is it more like an autopilot?
Yeah, good question. That's actually something else that we did announce on there. So this that I did here was all doing what we call continuous survey. And what that requires is me to physically tap the screen. So for example, if I go back to a project here, let's go into like this one, and let's say I'm going to go survey this room here. I'm going to say record survey. And then I'm going to say, okay, continuous survey. And in this case, I'm going to also remove our filter here just so we can see some live data now coming in as we survey. So the process is I would tap, and now it's starting to record those measurements. And then as I continue to walk around, it's going to provide that information for me in real time. Also, if I set on my filters here to even show like the heat map, while I collect the data, that heat map is going to update for me in real time. So this is me just kind of pretending to do a survey, but this is what the process looked like when I was actually at this office here doing that site survey. But yeah, I'm just doing it wirelessly, no cables or anything attached, so it's very convenient in that sense. I think actually Chris Denham on our launch webinar, I thought made a really good analogy that I connected with at least was doing this without wires. You might think like, oh, it's no big deal. Like I've been doing this, for forever with some type of wires now, right? And I was the same way about headphones, right? And I've used, what was the ear
The
pods or
earbuds.
whatever, earbuds, yeah, that were wired connected. And it's like that works fine, right? It's not a big deal. I just wrap up the cable and things like that. Yeah, occasionally they get tangled up and everything. But then I tried the AirPods, and it like changed my life in the sense of like I could never go back to using the earbuds with like a wire after that because it was such a an eye-opening experience, right? And I feel like, and that's what Chris had said in the launch webinar that I really resonated with, is he said it was the same kind of experience for him like that. It's once you kind of do a survey without needing to have any cables, without needing to worry about that cable getting snagged on a door handle or a desk, or whatever, and not having to worry about, plugging in or getting unplugged or disconnected or whatever. Like it's just such a different experience that
Well,
it's hard to really capture in details.
well, Jerry, I'll tell you this. We're all wearing our high vis vests right now, and you get that or a harness or any of that stuff on there, and there's just, there's buckles and all that stuff, and cables
Yep.
get caught all the time on it. So that, I mean, definitely for people that work in the environments we work in, typically that, that is a big deal, because it's, nothing sucks worse than you're walking around and you're watching out for mobile equipment, things like that, and then your cable gets yanked out, and then you got to figure out somewhere to like step to the side and get everything connected back up.
Well, and to take that a step further, just kind of compound on what Jeremy was saying, there are some areas that you're not allowed to have anything loose and dangling and hanging from.
True.
They have, that's just part of the safety retinue, is that you can't have loose and overhanging things because there's a chance it could get caught in machinery. And so the last thing you want to do is get a cord for your $5,000 device tangled up in machinery. And so not only are you out a $5,000 device, but now you've actually, stopped production or caused damage to the site. And that's going to cost you a whole lot more than that $5,000.
I've
Yep.
never walked through a light curtain that I wasn't supposed to walk through, just to be clear.
I'm sure none of us have ever done that.
I've never accidentally bumped an e-stop, ever.
I have gotten shocked on an Arcoax antenna that was not supposed to have anything on it, but yeah. So
Jim Palmer's got some really good stories about
yeah.
power going over coax, that's for sure.
So, we kind of talked about like the ruggedness aspect of it, right? And then the wireless capture, not being connected. I remember from the webinar there was some discussion about kind of how you accomplish the scanning with, is it 2 radios in there?
Yep.
Or is it?
Yep.
Yeah. So how do you accomplish the tri-band, scanning all 3 of them at, walking speed or?
Yeah. That's been a pretty interesting effort from like our development side of things, of multiple iterations, right? And lots of testing. So yeah, it uses, without getting into too much probably proprietary info, it
Mhm.
uses a very intelligent scanning algorithm. And it's adaptive, and it's dynamic as you're moving through an environment. So what you start with as far as its scanning algorithm and what you end with as far as its scanning algorithm is likely going to be very different. And what I mean by that is, in the past, what we always had to do was, as the engineer, we had to be potentially selective about what channels we're going to scan, because of the fact that there's so many channels, so many frequencies that we, as wireless engineers, need to scan. And it's like, okay, if I'm going into an environment and I know they're only using, let's say, 2.4 and 5 and not 6 gigahertz, I don't want my device to be equally scanning and equally weighting scanning 6 gigahertz as frequently as it is scanning 2.4 and 5, because that's what's going to have the information that I care about, right? But do we want to rely on the engineer, or potentially even like, let's say, a junior engineer that's going on site to collect that data, to have the know-how of setting that up to make sure that they're going to capture everything that's needed, and not miss anything, right? So we do that for the user, in the sense of it's adaptively adjusting that algorithm as you're moving through an area. So for example, if you start in an area, let's say in a building where you first set up your equipment, maybe all that's audible, let's say you're starting like a basement level of a building or something, and there's only a few APs that are audible on a couple of channels. Well, we're not going to spend all this time scanning all these channels that aren't in use, but then you leave that area and you go into an elevator or go upstairs or whatever, and now you're in a big open area, and there's lots of APs that are now all audible there on all different channels and frequencies. What has to adjust to that, or will it automatically adjust to that very quickly, as you move in and out of areas, depending on how many channels, how many frequencies are all in use in that part of the building. So especially if you think of like I don't know, even like a warehouse or anything like that, as you're moving in and out of areas throughout the warehouse, it's adaptively adjusting that algorithm. So it's making sure it's always using the most efficient scanning algorithm as possible. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's almost like it's almost like kind of like the neighbor report, essentially, right? Where it's, hey, this is what's in the area, so you kind of get maybe some of the, I mean, not to try and dig out too much sensitive information, right? But you
We won't tell
kind of,
anybody.
if you start to hear it, then it gets whitelisted and says, okay, we need to put this on the primary, and then at some point in time in the background we still check the others, so in case some of that
Yep.
stuff starts popping up, that makes sense.
Exactly.
Is that
And that's a
something
great
that
point. Just to dig into that part that you made about the R&Rs, right? The reduced neighbor reports that tell us about other channels that are out there, right? That the APs that we're currently hearing from can hear other APs nearby on a specific channel. That influences that intelligence as well. So it uses that into its intelligence of like deciding, okay, how often it should scan a specific channel. So it does use R&Rs. It uses those neighbor reports to be able to influence that kind of decision as well.
is this something that's being is that present on the Nomad as well, or is
It
that
is.
okay?
That's where we started with it, and that's where honestly that was kind of an eye-opening thing for us is do we actually need four radios? Because the Nomad has four radios, but now that we have this adaptive scanning technology that we've created, we realized in most environments, you don't need four radios. I would say probably in the range of about 90% of environments that our users are surveying, they don't need four radios. Two radios with this adaptive scanning provides just as much resolution, as much detail. I like to kind of think of it as like from a from photography, which I'm not a photographer, so I may get this wrong, but like I think of it as like, you've got things like optical zoom and digital zoom, right?
Right.
And because we've got such like, I don't know, what is it, the apertures or whatever, like we have such high, megapixel now photos, we can crop that photo using things like digital zoom. We don't need all that optical zoom anymore like we used to. I kind of see it as like a similar thing to that because we can
Mhm.
get such good like resolution with this adaptive scanning. Like we don't need four radios to accomplish what we can do now with two.
But the nice thing about the four radios is that you guys allow that box to be kind of more open, and you can use tools like Air Tool to capture on it. So that's
Yes.
Well,
There
even
is
then
so
still
thank you.
benefits for sure.
you're narrowed down to two radios, but you're still doing 2.4, 5 gig, and 6 gig.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Which is nice. So you're across. The only thing you need to add now is 900 megahertz because we got to add Halo
Yeah.
to this, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
That was part of my interest of coming onto the show was to kind of talk to you guys and say what are you hearing? I heard on your last episode talking about a lot about LoRa, and there's been
Laura, I'm
definitely
diving into, and it's a complex beast on the back end, especially with your servers and the different things. Oh my gosh, I'm going nutso on it. Fortunately, my guy Hunter, who's one of our developers at work, he has been helping me out a lot in getting some of these things set because you're actually on your gateways, you're not actually setting some of these things that you need to in order to get a sensor to connect up. You have to go through and set that up in the stack behind that, as far as what spreading factor, what channel you're going to use and whatnot. That's all not directly on that gateway. So it's interesting, and it's completely not what I thought it was going to be. And well, I mean, and it's like I said last time, you can know all about the frequencies, you can know about all about the channel spacing, you can know all about spreading factors, but all the configuration portion of that behind that is much more complex than one would think about.
yep.
And the majority of it is also cloud driven as opposed to local driven. And that's another challenge I'm running across. I'm trying to build a LoRa kit specifically for doing LoRa surveys, and I was hoping to have mine complete by now, but it's been a lot of challenges, and I've really been struggling through it. But I'm getting there slowly but surely. The folks at Heltec sent me one of their gateways. It's right here on my workbench. It's a great little gateway. Um, but it's all the stuff behind that I'm struggling with because I'm not a coder. I'm not a Linux guy. And so I'm having to relearn some stuff on the fly. But fortunately, I've got some good support from some of the guys at work who've been helping me out on these things too. But like I said, that takes LoRa into a whole different universe.
Yeah.
So many people just barely touch on, and I was one of them, just barely touch on the frequency aspect of it. Oh, well, that's nothing. It's supposed to use this and this. It's only, in the US, it's only the 902 to 928. So it's not like you're working with a ton of channel space. you're doing narrow channels, you're doing, certain frequency spreads. All that's no big deal until you start doing all the stuff that has to happen behind that in order for those things to actually connect and talk. But I feel that Halo is going to be making a huge impact in the grand scheme of things because of the last mile flexibility that gives so many people for afterthought devices, things that come up. Oh, you know what? Hey, Jim, we need to add these three things here, but they're out of range of our standard Wi-Fi network, but we don't want to invest another $10,000 to get them set up with individual point-to-points and things of that nature. What can we do? Well, we've already between our guys in Australia with they're what they run like a hundred, 200 bucks a piece for Halo radio.
Okay.
Like the Halo Link.
Yeah, for the Halo Link.
Well, I mean, these,
and then
those Heltechs,
the
it's like
Heltec dongles, which are
$130
actually
for a pair.
based off of that technology. And it's the flexibility that's going to give for endpoints is, as I think, off the charts. But nobody's really going to thinking about it until after the deployment, when all these, oh yeah, Bill forgot to tell us about XYZ. We need to get these connected up. It's like, oh, you just finished a $200,000 deployment, and now all of a sudden you got three more places you got to add. But they're small individual devices. You're not needing to support 50 end users. You're needing to support a single camera out on a fence, or you're needing to support a single workstation on a printer and a handheld scanner for a guy who's checking in trucks. And that's the same with the Steam. Their technology, 900 megahertz, is very, very similar to Halo, kind of in general on how they do things, but it's the same principle. Data over 900 and making that. And they've been doing that for 30 years. So it's surprising it took Halo this long to come around. But then when you look too, Halo's been out for a while now. And it's only just now starting to really gain useful traction because people are realizing what they can do with it. And it's very difficult to find anything that can give you a clue on what's going on, and unless you're doing direct spectrum analysis. And even then, you have to make sure that you have a dongle capable of doing that. You can do SDR, software defined radios, right? But a lot of the stuff that I've messed with for spec and for SDRs, you don't get a really good reporting feature on the back end. You have to take quick screen grabs. It's hard to get all that figured out and build a kit that actually works consistently. And then our guys at Awesome MetaGeek, I still have my 900 megahertz Wi-Fi adapter that still works with even the latest version of all the MetaGeek software. And so I'm able to at least go and get really good spec and grabs with that stuff, so I can at least get an understanding of the raw RF. But we need Halo scanners.
Yeah.
Because I think honestly, the potential for Halo is gonna start getting bigger, and well, I mean the potential is huge, but the actual use cases for Halo is going to do nothing but grow over time.
Yeah. Where are you primarily seeing the use cases? Is it indoor, outdoor, both?
Combination.
Okay.
The use cases that I've had for data over 900 megahertz in general have been mainly outdoor. And it's been very specific, but I'm seeing it more and more often because, you have to look at a customer's appetite for how much they want to spend. And then you have to say, well, we can do your primary wireless network to cover all these areas, but that's going to leave out a lot of your perimeter areas where you specifically have different gates and guards and different things like that still need to be integrated into the system, let alone cameras and different things like that. So it just, like I said, that now that I pay attention to it, I see it more and more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
interesting.
Let's face it. I'm a self-professed 900 megahertz junkie on top of all that. So, I'm gonna lie here kicking and screaming like a 5-year-old.
I can quit anytime I want. Well, I think what might be interesting is we could get Mark Houtz to to bully you guys a little bit. Maybe no, but that that Morse Micro is going to be putting out that USB adapter thing, so that might be something that depending, I don't know, we've got a data port on the Nomad, so
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's a great point too. I mean, that's a big differentiator between like Clip and Nomad is that Nomad is definitely more positioned for those types of use cases, right? Of those kind of, we'll say kind of more advanced workflows or whatever,
Mhm.
of being able to do, yeah, like we talked about with like 4-channel packet captures, but it also supports plugging in spectrum analyzer radios and modules to it. So yeah, I could definitely see something like that being an optional module that you could plug into to the Nomad and add that data to it. So yeah, it's definitely something to be on our radar for sure. And yeah, talk more with you guys and understand the use cases a little bit better. I think would be helpful. When you say like outdoors too, I'm curious of like what kind of range are you talking? Because I mean that's the thing with 900 megahertz is that can go pretty far, right? Like what?
Well, the one of the latest ones that I did was actually with some Esteem radios, and it was for a site down in Florida, and it was for uh, a materials check-in gate. So this gate processed uh, big trucks coming in, dropping off, source materials for the process that they had there. Um, and they originally had a wireless point-to-point that connected them up, but the problem was in between that gate and their main body of buildings, trees had grown up, but these were protected trees in Florida, so they couldn't cut them down.
Mm,
And they tried multiple times trying to brute force their way through with 5 gig 2.4, wasn't working. So I was already down there doing survey work for two of their sites in that area. And they asked me, I said, what would you do? And I said, well, man, the frequencies you're trying to use aren't going to work through there. I realize you guys have a standard with Cisco radios, but this is one of those cases you're going to have to go outside the box and use something different. And I said, we're going to have to look at 900 megahertz so that not only can we get that distance, which is about 3/4 of a mile, but we can punch right through that fairly sizable stand of trees. And I mean, it's not like, again, they're not having to support 50 people there. They're supporting two PCs, two printers, and some handheld scanners. So, on their average throughput was maybe 15 meg in the grand scheme of things. You know, and so that's what we did. I went in there and we replaced that link with a pair of those Esteem radios, and I had them set up, and they consistently get 20 megs through punching through all of this greenery that's doing nothing but growing and getting bigger. And so this was several years ago. And last time I talked to those guys 6, 8 months ago, they said it's still working like a champ.
nice.
Because that 900 megahertz doesn't care. It's such a low frequency. It just pushes right on through.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that's the kind of use cases I'm talking about. And had Halo been available in um, a more refined radio as opposed to being garage built at that point,
Hmm.
that's probably what my go-to would have been to, being that I'm already familiar with 802.11, right? Um, but and that's no knock against the Steam because those radios are awesome and I recommend them a lot. Um, but Halo, I think it has that capability of being used more by wireless professionals because it's already to 802.11. It's an environment we all know very well as far as protocol structure and whatnot. It's just a different frequency. So it's easier for those guys or for us, in general to adapt to. Does that make sense?
You also get the modern security features of the
Exactly.
newer standards. So it's like Pluto. We got to make it a planet.
Pluto is a planet. I don't care what they say.
But yeah, so I mean, in those kind of environments, we've seen too, kind of in like, in IT, you have kind of a shorter product life cycle and stuff. And some of this stuff we still get, people will upgrade the AP infrastructure finally in their buildings, and then all of a sudden there's still AGVs and stuff that we touch that are 15 or so years old, and they've got these these PCI slot Wi-Fi NICs in the computer, and they just don't run that well. But once they start having problems, the AGV manufacturers have to have, they it's not trivial to basically like put in a new client into something. You have to, where do you source the power from on the vehicle, like all those things. So having a low power radio, we've been looking at trying to do some testing for kind of a stopgap of maybe putting in some Halo APs in an area, and then just coming off of that IP, excuse me, the IPC with, like a Halo client, because then at least you've got something that's got some range that you can move around in the interim. So I see it getting kind of used more than just, as kind of like a curiosity or something in our space.
Yeah, I mean, the industrial universe gets a lot more stranger use cases just because of the environments that we've got. Especially when you look at what is it, the Class 1 Div 2 explosive areas and whatnot. You're only allowed to go in there at certain points when they're non-operational. There's a lot of that with mining and with large scale metal processing and whatnot.
So we've got an advanced scanning algorithm on this clip that, with the two radios. We've got a nice small form factor. Are there any kind of like product features that are in development, kind of to take advantage of this as well? Because when I messaged you about this, I'm thinking about the distance that we can get from it, because a primary example would be like a skillet, right, where it's just like a big flatbed essentially that's got wheels and drives underneath it that gets pushed along with a vehicle or whatever it is on it. And a lot of those are like an R-coax system on the underneath side of it. And so if I could take a device and I could be 15 feet, or I could be through some wood, standing on top of it, following it around, that gives me a lot better survey than just, hey, I've got my tool topside and I'm walking along, because it's it's fundamentally, even though it's a couple of feet of space, it's just a completely different RF environment than where the signal actually is. So it would be a little bit more accurate.
I think that's an interesting use case for sure.
But I mean, even stuff like, the presentation I did at WLPC last year, and with this I got behind me, one of the awesome things is that, with that WLAMP being able to Bluetooth connect to it, I was able to put external antennas on it. But even that, like putting it on something where it goes into a machine cell, or I can't walk around at 20 feet in the air. I'm not wearing stilts. That would be funny, but I'm not going to do that. But having it up kind of where we actually want the signal recorded at.
And how did that work with the WLAN-PI over Bluetooth? Were you able to get?
I was great. I was
stay
50.
connected?
I was 50 feet from it the whole time, just following it around. I mean, it was pretty substantial. And then that's kind of another thing, is I was looking at, like we were talking about Halo. I was looking at maybe even giving it, a Halo backhaul. So we're not, because there's not as much stuff on 900 megahertz in a lot of these plants versus 2.4. And even though Bluetooth plays pretty well with it, you still don't want to interrupt production on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it worked great.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Little battery pack and case and all that stuff. But I think that, I do have a quick question while it's on my mind before I forget. So is the clip reversible? Because I noticed the orientation you have here, the port's up. So
yeah, you're talking about the actual clip on the back of it?
Yeah. So could you reverse that, so that way the button and the port are down?
I don't. You're saying so that it could be like this?
Well, no. So like
Or all the way
180, yeah.
Oh, I don't think that clip could be completely reversed. The screw holes might, but I think there might be some difference in the plastic.
Yeah,
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, you can see it's a little bit, it's not completely centered there in the middle of it. But yeah, we have already had, with some of the prototypes that we have out there, we have had some some folks doing some stuff with 3D printing and things like that, and coming up with meg safe attachments, those kind of things. So we'll see where things go, but that is kind of intentional. I would say we put the screws that are user accessible, at least in some manner, for those more creative users that want to
Yeah, well,
to do
I'm already
something
thinking
different
of
with
I'm already
sure.
thinking of ways to do that.
I can only imagine the things you'll come up with, but yes. So yeah, I mean, you can see like that we went with like a very simple design in the sense of for the average user, we'll say, just to make it simple of being able to
And
put it on.
it just looks cool too. It looks like some sort of sci-fi ship.
Yeah.
Right on. The other thing, though, that's cool to be aware of that you guys might appreciate, or at least some of your users, one of the things that we specified with the size of this piece is this is compatible with like a Molly system. So that
Oh,
will slide into, a Molly backpack or whatever. So it is Molly compatible as far as the
That's
sizing of
cool.
that. So that will fit with like your Molly straps.
now
So yeah, that was
I don't know if Jeremy's Proton Pack is Molly compatible,
No,
but
no. So that is so funny though, because one of my coworkers wants to actually take this pack and ship it off, and I was like, well, first off, I had to do a lot of creative fundraising to get my hands on a set of curb radios just for me to have in my test kit. But I've ordered a Molly back plate, and so that's what we're going to kind of build off of for the next
that's
iteration of
awesome.
that. So it's Pelican, so you can take it apart and pack it safely and then put it together quickly. So that's really
Awesome.
good to know.
I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor for this episode, Global Process Automation. GPA is an engineering and technology firm based in North Carolina, serving clients in industrial processing and manufacturing, focusing on solutions for industrial automation, operational technology infrastructure, industrial control systems, cybersecurity, manufacturing intelligence, and analytics. For over 25 years, their clients have entrusted them with their processes to maximize their company's efficiency and obtain an optimal ROI based upon their assets while protecting their operational technology resources. GPA's mission is to automate, optimize, and secure manufacturing floors everywhere while maintaining their core values to have integrity, to continuously improve, embody their community, remain customer focused, and implement great teamwork. Thanks, and back to our show.
Yeah, yeah. Those little details, that somebody had some forethought to
That's
think
very
about of like,
considerate
hey,
of you guys.
yeah, exactly.
So
Try to
what are
consider
our
this.
core differences between the Clip and its big brother, the Nomad?
Yeah. Um, I think the biggest thing is going to be the more, if you need those more advanced workflows, right? That's where you're going to want to go with the Clip. Or with the Nomad, sorry. The Nomad is going to be kind of your maximum performance device. I think those 10% kind of use cases that I was talking about, that Clip isn't going to be maybe as optimal for. Clip is going to work in every environment from a Wi-Fi measurement standpoint. What I'm talking about is, let's say you're doing like a stadium or arena. I picked those out in particular because those stand out to me as like the places where I've seen where I can see an AP on like almost every single channel standing in like a specific location, right? Where like, yeah, it's such a high density of APs. You have big open, bowls, areas, things like that, where you're gonna just be able to stand in one spot and that thing can hear everything. So in those types of environments, if you're using something like the Clip, it'll still work perfectly fine. Yeah, it might not work over Bluetooth because of the noise, like on the Bluetooth. Maybe you've got a connected cable. And then on top of it, you might have to walk a bit slower than you would if you had something like the Nomad. So that's where the Nomad is going to tend to be, its benefits of that maximum performance is going to really shine because of the fact that you can, move as fast as you want. You don't have to slow down at all in those types of environments. But yeah, that's kind of the difference there. So if you're doing a lot of stadiums and arenas, definitely Nomad is probably going to be the better fit for that type of purpose. Again, Clip will still work perfectly fine. There's some considerations there. The other thing that the other differentiator there between Clip and Nomad is going to be if you need some more advanced workflows, like you mentioned, Scott, about doing a lot of like spectrum analysis type stuff. If that's really important to you and critical, Nomad is going to be our solution for that. On the Humina side, you're going to want a Nomad plus something like an NXT 2000. That's your tri-band spectrum analyzer. So that plugs into the side of the Nomad, and now you have tri-band spectrum analysis in addition to your Wi-Fi measurements, right? So that simple, plug that in, and now you've got that full capability with the Nomad. So that's
And
something
it
that's
also
another
looks
one.
like a thumbs up.
It does.
I like it.
Well, I mean, one of the other things that I really like about Hamina in general is your partnerships and intercompatibility with some of the other vendors. You pull up that NXT, and
Yep.
that's a Net Ally device. I'm a huge Net Ally fan. My Cyberscope Air is my go-to for just about everything these days. That was a game changer with it because that makes spot checking, uh, spectrum analysis so easy and so quick. I'm not having to run back, grab my laptop because the form factor on that is so much better to carry around for everything than a lot of other things. The clip, I think, is a real complement to the functionality and stuff that you can get from Net Ally, and then from the functionality you guys can get from your stuff. But it's nice seeing that interplay between notable vendors in this space. Sure, there's competition, but it's friendly competition. Everybody knows each other. No one's nasty about it, that's really great. And then you get Ossium into the mix, who's actually making a lot of these things for everybody. It's kind of like a trifecta of some of the top stuff in the business to make sure that you're really getting the data you need to get, if that makes sense.
And I think just getting the most value for your investment, right? That's kind of the way that we look at
Absolutely.
it from Hamina is like, if you're going to invest in this hardware, we don't want to silo you and lock you into only using it with our software and tools. We want to make sure you're getting the maximum value out of that investment, especially when it comes to hardware.
Well, I think, that's a big point too, is that, so I can't say much about it, right? But so, some of our customers, having that ability to even just have, that's why we ended up getting an extra one, and we'll probably get an additional Nomad for, our entertainment side. But it is nice that it's like, hey, we're kind of already like a Mac shop. So everybody uses MacBooks and iPads and stuff, but being able to have that, this tool where it's like, hey, I've got like a battery powered box, I can connect to it and I can do air captures with it through like Air Tool. Like that's so that, or even, stuff through like Wi-Fi Explorer. It's so nice to be able to just have some of those tools, because you don't have to say, oh man, I got to keep 4 extra Wi-Fi NICs and then a USB hub and all that stuff. You've said it a couple times, but I do think like, the price points on these things are very reasonable too. And it's like, if you look at some people, it's like to get into the space with some of the tools that are out there, $10 or $15,000 versus like you could equip a team with some of this stuff. And even like the size factor on this, like that's going to be, for just like an engineer on site to say, hey, I need, let's say $2,000, right? Just ballpark. I think it's less than that. But to be able to just go around and like check in the warehouses, or like, because some of our customers, we get pulled in because they don't have anybody that has wireless expertise, but some of these people do have wireless people that support 5, 10, 20 sites. And so to be able to have something where it's like, hey, we're going to still come to you when we have big problems, but to survey our warehouses, it would be better for us to just come in and do that stuff. And I do
Price point, that's a huge
yeah,
deal right there. We have a client who wants us to come and do some stuff, but they want to run on what their IT standards are. So I have to now and then we're charging them for this on a project, but Now we have to get that competitor's software. We have to get that competitor's device. We have to get the devices to work with all of that because we are not an Apple shop like Jeremy is. We're a Windows shop, you know, and we've been pricing it out, and it's to the tune of almost $25,000 to get me everything I need to do the project they want. That's a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah, it's a big investment.
I'm sorry, Jeremy, I totally cut you off.
No, that's totally fine. But I mean, I love just the openness of kind of the project, and like, we're talking about the Net Ally stuff, right? And like, it's really nice. Like I can do all this stuff with this. I can look at it in Link Live. I can push it into Homina where we primarily do design stuff. And so it's like maybe the workflow is different. So maybe I want to kind of build a report in one thing, or I like the visualization one offers versus the other. And you can kind of pull those things in together, and it's really nice.
And maybe that's something worth mentioning to your audience too, is that's another thing that we embrace is, yeah, if you have a Net Ally devices, an AirCheck G3, you can use that to do a site survey and ingest those results into Hamina. So that's another kind of unique thing that Hamina offers. And you can do some really cool stuff with that. I don't know if you guys have done a site survey with Hamina, regardless whether it's with an AirCheck or Nomad or now with like the Clip. You can take all that rich site survey data, not only analyze the site survey as far as like, where are my gaps, my issues, but then you can in turn take that site survey data, apply that to the simulation, and have it learn the environment based on the survey results. So we can do so much cool stuff now with the effort that you put in of collecting all that data, and now do a ton more with it to make it even that much more useful and valuable than we ever could in the past.
When you guys first had that integration going on, I was super excited about it, and I went and did some test stuff, and it was a little clunky at the time, and my results weren't all that smooth. I know that has completely changed since that beta stage, because that was when it was in beta. I just haven't had the time to go back and do that because I have several surveys that I do want to import, and just for the sake of, oh wow, let's see what this is going to look like. So that again, that um, um, brand, I guess, integration is really, really nice.
Yeah. Have you done site surveys with AirCheck? Do you do that at all, or do you just use it more
I
for
do
the
that all the
testing
time
side?
now. That's my,
Do you?
like I said,
Okay.
that's my go-to. And,
Nice.
as far as from my point of view, when I'm doing surveys on industrial sites, it's all the network data behind that the Cyberscope pulls for me, that lets me see, so I can then turn around and give them more actionable data, because it's not just the wireless, it's that OT network that it's all connecting to, and I'm able to say, hey, why are these XY devices, why can they be seen from here, and give them essentially a security readout on top of that. You know what I mean? And it's pretty impressive. So the analytics that Net Ally does on their dashboard are really, really impressive. And their reporting feature is, well, their reporting features, because all of their graphics, it's just simple click and download the graphic. You're not having to take screenshots and screw with resolution. Their charts and graphs, and then it builds you a network topology that you can manipulate and show different things, and then you can download that. All that back end functionality is very, very strong for what I do. Um, and so when you start combining that with the flexibility of being able to then import that survey over into Homina, so when I go to start design work, I'm not having to repeat myself. Does that make
Yep.
sense?
Yeah. Do you want to see a quick demo of it? Do you think your audience
I
would
would
want to see
love
it,
to.
the link live? Let's just show real quick. I actually have one that I did. This was actually at a WLPC, but yeah, it's just when I still had my project list here. So I'll just show you this one real quick. So this is linked up to my Link Live account. So yeah, if you do have a Net Ally device, any handheld Net Ally device that supports the AirMapper application. So something like I used an AirCheck G3 here. But yeah, I did all the measurements with the AirMapper application, but then I linked it to my Hamina account and Link Live, pulled in all the measurements into Hamina, and now we can use Hamina's engine to, analyze the results, identify where our gaps and issues are. But I think what's super cool about this is, one, it's automatically built this 3D model for me,
Oh,
right? So
wow.
that's something that Hamina does, just on its own, regardless of whether we're doing a simulation or pulling in data from Link Live or Mist or wherever we're pulling that in from. It'll automatically do all this for you. But the my favorite part about this is if we go now from survey to simulation, or what I like to call the sandbox, go play in my sandbox here. It's going to automatically take all of the survey data here that I collected using my NetAlly device and apply that to the simulation. And what I mean by that is if we come into here and I say, okay, use the simulation prediction mode using the survey data, the learned environment from the survey, without me having to go in here and draw any walls or specify, where's their glass, where's their drywall, where's their concrete. Notice how it already understands how that signal is going to propagate through this space because it's learned the environment from the survey data. So yeah, I think
So
that's
you're saying, so
super
you're saying
powerful.
like it's kind of taken into account, like, hey, I know there's a wall here. It preloads attenuation measurements and
Yep. So it's taking all that data that it learned from showing, okay, the source of this, signal was here. Here's how it propagated out from that source of that signal, and then it learned the environment of how that signal is attenuating through this space. So now it knows when I go back to my simulation side, as I move this access point around and I move it inside of a room or out in a hallway here, it understands, how that signal is going to propagate through that space.
That's
So yeah,
cool.
just one of the useful things. Obviously, then we can do all the other things that you would do with a normal survey as well. Whether you survey again with the Nomad or Clip or like an AirCheck G3 in this case, we can create reports and everything based on that as well. But yeah, we can analyze all the data from the survey. Even like our new network status, like that works with this as well. So this will allow you to validate like a network based on multiple criteria and metrics to show you where you have any gaps or potentially multiple gaps. In this case, like in this orangish area here, it's telling me I'm failing on 3 different criteria: primary coverage, secondary coverage, as well as we've got some interference in that area. So we don't have enough signal, and we have too much of signal on the same channel in the same area. So weak signal, but too much on the same channels.
what was that again? Will you show that menu item again?
Oh, the heat map. This is the new network status heat map. That's
Okay.
the one we just added recently. I think it was either right at the end of last year or start of this year. But yeah, just in the last couple of months, we added this network status visualization
And
heat map.
is that customizable in
Yeah.
like you can kind of set your levels like
Yeah, so you
yeah.
can turn on and off what criteria you want it to validate against to give you kind of that pass fail. But then also it's tying into, okay, what is your coverage requirement? And you can adjust that requirement here. What's your secondary coverage
Okay, so
requirement?
it
Yep.
pulls from
Okay.
what you have in those.
Pulls it from there. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you can see here it's showing me what's set, but if I go into here and say, oh, we don't actually need -65, we only need -67. Now, if I go back to my network status, it's going to have updated that to -67 for our primary requirement.
That's it. So that's kind of like the Scott, like the Airwise part in the air magnet
I
reports.
remember that.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm an old air magnet guy too. It's been a while, but since
same
I've
here.
moved over to Hamina, I have not been using air magnet. But that was another bonus with using the Net Ally for the survey stuff, is you could export that to Air Magnet as well.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, we don't have any ability to work with air magnet, but I don't think we've got too many inquiries of that these
No, no,
days either.
I wasn't saying that. I'm just saying that the
I do
ability
remember
of
that.
what I can export my data from on on my Cyberscope, using the Air Mapper utility
Yep.
it just keeps becoming more and more versatile, which to me just increases the value of both.
And is that network status? Is that an element that can be added into the reports as well?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I can't remember off the top of my head if we've added that to the reporting yet. If not, it will be very soon.
Okay.
But yes, that will be part of the reporting side as well if it's not there already. I was going to show you one more demo here. We were kind of talking about this a little bit, I think, before the show started, but
When we
let's
were
talk about like
pre-gaming.
Yeah, exactly. With a warehouse side of things, and like, we were talking about a bit about like reflections and stuff, right? So, that's a
Yes.
common thing, obviously, in an environment, typically any environment where you have lots of, metal and lots of materials and, lots of flat, long surfaces and things like that, depending on what kind of objects are in there. But yeah, one of the things that Hamina can help with is the ability to like one kind of automate a lot of that, right? So in this case, I specified a new project and I said this is a warehouse. And what I did was just dragged and dropped a floor plan into here. And now this floor plan is nothing fancy in the sense of any kind of layers or anything like that. But even with just um, the the intelligence that I've given it so far is just that this is a warehouse, right? And even with just that limited amount of information, it can start to build a 3D model of this space. So let's just see how long it takes it here. It's still going through. There we go. It just detected all the walls, and then that quickly it detected all like the
Wow.
racking and shelving. So
So
this
when it does
obviously
that, does
is
it go ahead and set attenuation values to the racking and shelving?
Yeah, so it's going to make some default assumptions, right? Because we told
Okay.
it it's a warehouse, so it's already got some intelligence there of knowing, okay, a warehouse, has some typical. Obviously, we know where every warehouse, I like to say, is a snowflake, right? They're all unique in their own ways, but we can make some default assumptions that at least get us kind of in the ballpark. And so it's already saying, okay, this is a warehouse. We're going to guess those are shelves, warehouse shelves, and those are going to be something, in this case, it guessed 26 feet and 8 dBm per meter, which means we've got some fully stocked shelves with some pretty dense materials. So what that all translates to is if I drop an access point on here, you can see that's really going to attenuate a lot of that signal. Now, the
Well,
aisle that we're in
that
line
saves
with,
so much time from having to manually draw everything out.
yep. And that's really the goal, right? Isn't so much to get the attenuation exactly right, but to save the time of having to manually and tediously add all that information into here. So what I can do now is I could either say, okay, let's apply the default because maybe that's what the bulk of this is. And then from there, I can go and tune all this. So let's say these shelves over here are not full height shelves. These are actually some shorter shelves here. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to select all of these. And I'm going to say, instead of those being shelf warehouse, we're going to make those be something else. We're going to say those are shelf liquid. And that's just one of the other default ones. And now we've got some shorter shelves. So that quickly we can kind of tune some of the stuff or, make this more accurate. I also noticed it drew in some shelves for some areas that these are actually like desks. These aren't actually like shelves. So I'm just going to clean those up and delete them. And I would much rather have it do that of like if it thinks that's like a shelf because it's super easy to like go in bulk, kind of like delete stuff that it added that shouldn't be there, than have to like go and manually add it because
Well,
it missed
I tell
something.
you, it's like I tell our interns and our new junior engineers, it's so much easier to modify than build from scratch.
Exactly. Yep. Spot on. Yeah, so you can see here, if we just take this one axis point, let's put this thing higher up in the air. What's a good model AP that you guys are usually working with in like this kind of environment? Would it be like a Cisco or
I've started using a lot more Fortinet gear personally.
okay?
Um,
Yeah, let's just grab
I know
something.
Jeremy does
What's
a lot of Siemens and whatnot.
any
The
particular model we
four
should
Well,
use?
in a
the
warehouse, a lot of
430
times that would
was it?
be,
Hang on.
Which which one we're using, Jeremy? Are you using Siemens in warehouses or what are you
well,
primarily
no,
using?
a lot of times
241K.
they'll be like Aruba or Cisco or Mist or
Yeah, there it
sometimes
is.
Ubiquity.
Okay. Let's put this thing up on the ceiling. So check this out. If I put this up in the air, we can now see that, represented and we can understand how that signal is going to propagate. But let's say, yeah, let's do something like this of, where we're near, especially like some walls. So we've got a few different kind of walls and objects and stuff in here for the signal to kind of bounce off of. And if we say here, we're going to add in FRT, that's fast ray tracing. That's going to give us a more accurate kind of representation of any kind of bounces or anything that might happen with that signal. So it's going to compute FRT here, and we can see what the first time we kind of run this, it'll take a little while to kind of add that all up, but it's basically looking for, yeah, any kind of paths that the signal could take that might have some kind of reflections and bounce off of to kind of fill some of that. And what we should also do is probably look at this in 2D, so that way we can see this a little bit easier here. But yeah, it's still going through and computing that. So the first time it goes through and computes that FRT, it can take some time.
Well, you know it's some
So
serious number crunching when it's taking that long on your beefy cloud servers.
That's right. But there you go. You can see how much that can impact the reflectivity through the environment there. So you can see now, yeah, with the reflections in this, we definitely see that signal spread through. Also notice how, like, yeah, especially off of like this wall here, you're seeing how that signal is kind of bouncing down some of these aisles here, especially on these shorter shelves. But we're not seeing as much into these taller shelves that's still blocking a lot of that signal.
Well, and
And
as we
this,
all know, some reflection is good and can be really good,
Can
but
be, yeah.
too much and a lot of reflection ends up becoming very, very bad.
Yes, especially in this environment, that's where, you're dealing with those co-channel interference issues. You'll see a lot of that being represented in that reflections.
so Jerry, I've used that fast ray tracing in we were doing some predictive coverage for some outside of the building, tractor trailer loading. So to see like, get a better guess of like how well will the reflectivity help us going into that trailer.
Yeah,
That's a great feature. What would be really nice would be with those with that 3D antenna model for like planning wise is if you could toggle that on where it would kind of stay up on that side menu for display.
Which one?
Because so like when you highlight the if you click on an AP and then you've got like your little 3D, that rotating 3D
Oh yeah.
antenna pattern like off
Yep.
to the side. So like below like show more or something like that.
Okay.
That'd be kind of nice to have that because sometimes, when you're going through with a customer, it helps visualize and we should probably show what we were talking about before the show, like adjusting the
Yeah, that
antenna.
right there.
But
Yeah.
like having that where it could be like pinned up easily or like persistent, because sometimes when you're talking through with customers, it is really nice to be able to say,
That would
hey,
be
like this is what the antenna pattern looks like, and then here's kind of how that
right. So
manifests
being able to
in
pin that little rotating image up and keep that right there up while you're working on other things would
Yep.
be
But that's
pretty
this
helpful.
is like saved me so much time with customers instead of saying,
Agreed.
hey, here's this innocuous antenna pattern chart that like
You know,
is not
sometimes it's the little things, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
For sure.
it's hard to kind of explain it to people sometimes.
Yep. And actually, that's a good question. I'm curious of with some of the vendors, they actually have given us permission to share the like the OBJ files where you can actually download them and print them.
Mhm.
Not all the vendors we've gotten permission for some of that. So yeah, it kind of depends on the vendor. But yeah, if you look at like some of these, I'm trying to see. Yeah, so like if you see the little download option, you can actually download the OBJ. So yeah, to that point, if you're trying to like
Oh, that's
articulate something to
interesting.
the customer, then you can 3D print that antenna pattern and actually show them. I think all the external antennas, like for like a cell tech, for example, those all allow us to download those. So you could see if we do, I don't know, let's do like I'll just grab like an Aruba with like an external antenna, and then yeah, if we do like any of the cell tech ones. Yeah, you see the little download thing. So you could actually 3D print those antennas to have that, reference, a physical reference of that antenna pattern. So
That's
fun
cool.
little things.
And then Jerry, I guess while you got this here, maybe we should kind of talk about like different ways because right, we have clients at different heights. And so sometimes our coverage, right, we've got an access point at 30 feet up. You might have
Yeah.
like an overhead crane or something that operates on that wireless, but also you need coverage at the floor level. So using that
Yeah.
client height to kind of visualize
Absolutely.
like how that changes.
Yeah, let's do this. I'm gonna set the ceiling height to something pretty high up. Let's say this really tall building here. But maybe our APs are kind of lowered down. But what we want to see is, what does the signal look like, up higher above these APs as well. So we could do is actually simulate like a client. So we could do two different things to kind of represent that. Is we could simulate a particular client in the environment, and we can specify the height of that client as well by adjusting this, and you can actually see the guy moves up and down, vertically here, depending on what height I have them set to. So it'll show you that connection. So if we move him all the way up to like the top of the racks here, for example, you can see now he's up above the racks here. So you can see what that signal looks like there.
Well,
But also
again,
for
like Jeremy said when we were pre-gaming, the problem with that is, when you have him up that high, he's not wearing his fall arrest system.
we need to work on that. We need to add a PPE or something like
Yeah,
that
harness.
option to yeah, it should auto put PPE on them. Okay, so let me show you this here. If we go to this in like our 3D view, we can also adjust that same client height, so we can actually show what that signal level is for the entire network. And you'll see it'll update that automatically as we kind of go through these kind of levels here. You see the heat map kind of dynamically updating. But also, what if I just want to see a particular AP and what that AP looks like? So we could just select like a single AP as well. And this is actually another good way to kind of show that signal propagation, right? So if we look at this from, way up high above that AP, here's this particular AP here with this particular antenna that we're using, and we can see what that kind of signal propagation. So you can see it does have quite a bit of propagation that goes kind of in all direction, very omni here. But if we did something that was more, let's say, directional, let's take something with some directionality to it. Yeah, let's take maybe like this guy, for example. And now we're going to point this from the ceiling down at the floor. And now you can see the impact that would have, right? So the AP is still here, but we're looking at what the signal looks like up above that access point. So you can see how it's really starting to lose that signal directly above that AP pretty quickly, versus if we start to slide that down, you can see how that signal improves. Once we get kind of back down below underneath that AP, we'll let that update there. But yeah, now we're into the aisles. So if we go just up a little bit and get just above them, let's go to something like here. Now we can start to see how that signal is going to propagate above the racking there as well. So yeah, kind of use it as a little bit of like I like to think of it as kind of a like the water level on like a fish bowl or an aquarium or something. You can adjust the water level there and see the top of the water.
Well, that's a really good too for what's really nice about this is like, it's if you explain it, verbally to somebody, it's kind of like math or something like that, where it's like, if you have an ordered pair or you have like an input output of a function, those could represent the same thing, or like a pictorial graph. And so like something like this where you say, hey, like, yeah, you have, like the interference doesn't look bad necessarily down here between these racks where like the signal's getting eaten up. But if your access point's above those racks and you've got an antenna that spreads in an omni, then all the other APs in that range can hear it. So stuff like this is like really good to kind of help do that storytelling for people that maybe don't, hadn't done 100 site deployments or whatever it is, and kind of understood the real life implications of that.
Yep.
And this is something you showing me this is something that I hadn't thought about using this. So like, this was awesome for me to kind of add to my toolbox today.
Cool. Well, let me show you guys one more thing that I think, you guys tell me if this is something you guys would appreciate, or maybe some of your audience members would. But in these industrial environments, I remember one of the challenges that I always ran into doing designs is, where can we actually get a cable, right? Especially if we're trying to wire this stuff up, and, how far away are some of these kind of things. So one of the things that Hamina can also help with on the network planning side is being able to do that wired planning. And just by placing something like, I'm going to actually specify there's an IDF I know in this warehouse here. And let's just see if we have any issues with some of these cable runs with that. That's our only spot for like an IDF, right? And you can see we're gonna have lots of cable runs that are all going to be over that 100-meter distance, if that's our only location for that IDF. Now, thankfully, they do also have an IDF
So
here.
I'm going to go ahead and stop you right there. My last project, I really started getting in and using these features, and it's really starting to turn Hamina into an overall network designer too. And I'm really hoping you guys push forward and get more in depth and start tweaking these more, because these tools, even for basic connectivity, are pretty awesome. And I know I actually put in a feature request for your cable tray your cable tray planning.
Yeah.
to be able to specify the heights of those cable trays.
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
that is very,
missing.
very necessary in these environments, because your cable trays are not at your standard 15 feet, right?
Yep.
A lot of these cable trays are 20, 30, 40 feet in the air, depending on the size of the building that you're in.
Yep.
They could be snaking one of 100 different ways. And so that makes this planning all the more important. And I really leaned on it for a recent project on placement due to location of IDFs.
Nice.
And that tool is very, very strong. And I really hope you guys continue to develop and improve that tool.
Yeah, that's great feedback. Yeah. Yes, there has been some requests for that. What we added most recently is the ability to add cross connects to the actual switches or IDFs, being able to specify what type of cable. So that's going to add that additional kind of cabling component. So yes, we are continuing to expand the wired planning capabilities for sure. That's a big emphasis for
Well,
us.
the nice part of this too is when you do the reporting, you don't have to do PDF reporting. You can do link reporting, which
Yeah.
my clients so far have absolutely loved being able to click that link and go and manipulate all of these things on their own in their own time without change. They can't change anything, but it lets them look at all these different facets. It lets them do the 2D view, the 3D view. It lets them cycle through whatever you decide to let them cycle through in the report. And that has been a real game changer for my assessments and designs in general, because I'm able to say, okay, well, here's the links. You guys go look at this anytime you want. And it also lets you set a secure password to it, so it's not just open to the universe.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, that's been a pretty big deal, in that it's so important to be able to give our clients who are not as knowledgeable in this area. That's why they hired us, right? To be able to give them these visual things so that they can instantly understand. My wife's a teacher. She talks about the different types of learning all the time. And visual spatial is a huge, huge, huge thing, especially for primarily what we work with, engineers, right?
Yep.
We all kind of have a different human brain set. Otherwise, we wouldn't be engineers. And that visual spatial is a huge, huge deal, especially when you're trying to explain to those who don't fully understand the concepts that we work with every day.
Yep. That's awesome.
Is
Yeah, that's
there,
great
I
feedback.
wonder if there's any way for, as we're kind of talking about this too, like, using this as that reference and like pushing that, are there any plans for like, almost like an Excel, like an Excel sheet or something where people could like add into it, or even like add an external link. So if you had like a shared, like project document, so you could have like status, maybe not necessarily like make this like a full-on planner tool as far as that, but like having something where like either you could link out to an external document, or you could enter like project notes like as things complete. So so you have your you have your subcontractor in there installing stuff, and they could say, hey, we've installed, check, 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 these APs are installed.
So a way for them to be able to like kind of provide feedback or some kind of input or something to sign off on like the design or something.
I
Is
mean,
that what you're
conceivably,
envisioning?
if you could do external links, I mean, then that opens up a huge thing to where, be it Google Forms, be it secure SharePoint shares, so on and so forth.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I would say the closest that we have to that today would be the ability to now add your own, custom pages, and you can add as many as you want. So yeah, you could have some kind of a sign off thing. I almost wonder like if there's a way to like have this like, something either embedded into this or link from this into something else. Yeah, that's
Where
an interesting thought.
even if it was like add in, like a radio, like Microsoft check to do or whatever, right? Where it's like you could add like a radio button task item with a check off, or like somebody could leave you a note, or you could say, hey, you know, Bob Dabalina is the responsible party for getting the cable ran. When is that complete? Things like that. So like as you're at, so then this kind of becomes for us like a source of truth, where it's like, okay, we've handed this to the subcontractor. They could, I mean, and it doesn't have to be super complicated, but just like a field where somebody could enter something in, so that way, and then I get a pop-up that like, hey, there's a, almost like change tracking on a Word document or something, then you see like, hey, there's an action item on here. Look at it. I think
I
stuff like
like it.
that might be,
Yeah.
that might be useful. And
Yeah, I'd love
also,
to see some examples of that too. If you have some other tools or forms or something
mhm.
set up for that, that sounds like it would be a great addition to these kind of tools.
And also I want to give Joel a shout out because I forgot that I asked for an antenna before there was a support ticket thing, and he got an antenna in for me that I had totally forgotten I asked for.
That's
I
awesome.
love Joel. Joel is an amazing human, and I have personally learned an incredible amount of just general wireless knowledge. But he was one of the people who helped fuel my passion for Spec-An from back in his MetaGeek days.
Yeah.
And Joel is just an amazing human, and I'm so glad you guys got him.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's definitely a privilege and an honor to be able to work alongside him for sure.
as
Well,
we're kind of winding down here, I do want to hit some some high points here, some really the benefits that this the clip and these tools can bring to those of us in OT. And I just want to hit these kind of at a high level. Rapid field validation is a really big deal. We talked at length about the cable-free freedom and not being able to get snagged on items. That's a pretty big deal. It's
yep.
lightweight. It's easy to use. The clip itself is you just toss into a bag and you're rolling. You don't have to worry about a specialized case for it. It's built solid. It's very rugged. So if you do accidentally drop it, or if you end up bumping into a piece of machinery, you're not worrying about a fragile piece of equipment. Um, you've got that multi-band coverage. You've got the 2.4, the 5 gig, the 6 gig, Wi-Fi 7, full 802.11 suite. However, like I have been really banging on with NetAlly. I'm going to hit it with you guys too. We need to get 900 megahertz in there.
Yep.
We need to push that, and I know Julio's getting tired of me, picking on him about it, but we
You're
got to
wearing them
get
down.
someone will eventually finally say, "Shut that guy up and put it in there." Um, you
I
know,
like it.
you guys, you have a lot of solid training and documentation. I really like your feature request inputs on there. Um, and this makes it easier for those of us in the OT universe who we don't have time to go and refigure out everything. It's all right there at our fingertips, and you guys make it really easy to use. And that's the important things because Jeremy and I can't always go on site. Sometimes we have to ship something to somebody to be our smart hands, right? Um, and you don't want it to be overcomplicated. These guys are controls guys. These guys are E&I guys. Their brains are filled with complete different informational engineering, right? So we don't want them to even have to think about it too hard. And when you can um, make it as easy to use as you guys have, that's a pretty big deal.
Hmm.
Uh, and then all the flexibility with everything. So that really, in the OT universe, budgets count everywhere, obviously, but in the OT universe, I want to say there's even a more stress point on budgets because of, they're ever more watchful. If it's not something that makes money for the company as far as production values, then they're very, very skimpy, and it's hard to raise funding for these things.
Yeah.
So helping bringing down the cost of these tools is another really kind of a big deal. You know what I mean? Um,
Yep. And I don't know if you saw, I mean, not to get all salesy or anything, but yeah, I mean the introductory price for the clip, you're talking less than $1,000,
I saw
basically a
that, and
thousand dollars. Yeah.
that was that I was happy to see that because when you look at a device like that, you figure intro pricing is usually going to be around about around two and a half is what I would think.
Yeah.
So coming in at under 1,000,
And
that's
that
really
gets
nice.
you, and doesn't that get you 6 months of on-site access too?
Yep, 6 months included, so you're covered for the first 6 months, and then yeah, if you want to extend it to like let's say another year after that 6 months, it's only $780 per year. Then after that, so yeah, very low barrier to entry was kind of the goal there. Get people started with the tool, and then yeah, you can renew the
And is it
subscription.
is it is it Roger that you usually deal with the sales?
In the US, yeah, Roger
Yeah.
covers kind of head of sales here in the US.
He's
So
because
yeah, he's
because
kind of my sales counterpart.
as we've added people in and stuff, he's been real good. He's been really good to work with, like linking up the licenses so they're all kind of due at the same time and all that stuff. That's been pretty
Yep,
nice.
the co-terming
And
and
then
everything. Yeah.
Scott, to kind of add on to that,
I was going to ask you, have any final thoughts?
so I know Joel's got like a rotator tool and some stuff like that, but
Yeah.
I cannot pronounce his name, but is it
Chetziel.
Chetel? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been going crazy with some of the like, oh, here's this, design tool. So it is kind of nice, like being able to manipulate just by virtue of like, it's like you've got like JSON objects in there, so you can like extract that stuff out, change values, and like paste it back in. So there's some stuff like that. So Scott, we should probably link some of those tools in there too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's some
And we
pretty cool stuff.
brought Joel up, so it's also a good time to mention his Spectrum tool that he put out that is really nice.
Yeah. Potatofy.com, I think, kind of has everything on there. But yeah, you've got the interactive spectrum chart, the rotating humming objects. Yeah, he's been putting together all sorts of cool little vibe coded, Minecraft on Windows XP and all those important things. But yeah, definitely Joel's got some awesome stuff. But yeah, Chettiel, if you don't have the link to that one, I can share that as well. But yeah, Chettiel's has done some really cool stuff with all sorts of things, spectrum related as well as Hamina related, and all the tools he's been kind of working on doing different things with. So yeah, pretty cool, and a lot of it's freely available.
I might need to buy him a coffee.
Hey, while I got my screen share going here, you guys mind if we you mentioned spectrum analysis? You guys mind if we geek out real quick with the little spectrum?
No, let's do it.
So I've got a Nomad plugged into my Mac with the NXT 2000, and I've got a interfere, and let's play a little game of name that interfere. I'm gonna plug this guy in, and I want to see if you can figure out what this interfere is. And the clue is that it is something you would potentially find in a more industrial type environment. First, let's see who can pick up where that interfere is on the spectrum. What channel? Call out the channel when you see the interfere. It's a narrow band interfere for a clue.
Up there on 157.
Yeah, that's it. So we're on 5 gigahertz. Up on channel 157, you see that really narrow, sharp spike.
Really narrow
right?
spike shooting way up.
Now, any guesses of what it actually is?
Is that one of those automatic light sensors?
It is very good. Wow, nicely done. Yes, so this is a motion sensor for like building automation system of detecting presence, let's say in a warehouse, if somebody enters an aisle, it turns the lights on in the aisle automatically. But yeah, these things are up on the ceiling, which is also where our access points typically are, right?
Yep.
So yeah, these can be pretty nasty to Wi-Fi.
You're absolutely right. So I will say I am very happy that I passed Stump the Chump today.
You did? I'm impressed. I was not expecting to get that. Maybe I give you too many clues.
Well, no, I mean, to be honest with you, that's my first thought because I actually see that fairly often.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I think you are the first person that did accurately locate it on the spectrum and, accurately guessed what the actual interfere was. So yeah, if you want to see it, here's what it looks like. I just put a plug on it so I can plug it in easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, this would normally be up on
awesome.
the ceiling. Motion sensor for your lighting systems. But yeah, there's a few of these out there that do.
It's like one of those
on
tentacle
5
things from the
gigahertz.
Matrix.
Yeah. So obviously not Wi-Fi technology at all. Just happens to that radar type technology that it uses happens to
be in that ISM space. That open available space that we all have to compete with.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's just using the Nomad with the NXT 2000, and allows you to see things like that on the spectrum, and that gets captured as part of the survey. So that's a cool part of it too. Is we're looking at the real time view there, but with the Hamina on-site and the survey solution, if you go do a survey of a warehouse, you pick up all those kind of things throughout the environment as well that you can then play back in the survey.
So Jerry, you're going to be at WLPC, right?
I will.
Jeremy's going to be there. Jeremy has the latest renditions of the Industrial Wi-Fi Shop, The Sticker. I am currently working on the industrial Wi-Fi shop, The Coaster. And before too long will be the industrial Wi-Fi shop, The Toilet Paper.
Nice.
Jerry, do
And
you have any? Oh,
Straight
yeah.
out of Hamina. Excellent.
I've got some straight out of Hamina stickers, so come find me at WLPC. I have a few other stickers, walrus stickers and things like that as well. I got a fresh batch for WLPC. So yeah, come find me.
I need to get one of those big walrus mugs. Let's see,
We
you
do
got one
need to
right
get you
there.
one of these. I think I might have like one extra. So I
Because that's
will
because the regular size I do have. This is like my favorite coffee mug, but I don't use it. I think it's cracked. But this graphic design firm my wife worked for, and it's
I like it. That's cool. Very fun. Yeah, we might have one more of the extra large size mugs. And just so yeah, you guys aren't on the video.
that's a sufficiently sized coffee
Well,
mug.
so here's what it says. It is a appropriately sized for efficient processes.
That's right.
So just to compare, here's your normal size,
Oh,
coffee mug.
yeah.
This is the extra large. So yes,
Well,
this is a
the
very
Hamina
big
size is actually more of a traditional Irish coffee size.
Is it? Yeah.
So
Good to know.
Jerry, thank you so much for joining us today and going over all of that. I really appreciate it. Jeremy, thanks for showing us the proton pack in the background because that thing is amazing. I love that
Yeah.
thing. I can't wait to one day actually
I
get
just
to
realized
check it out.
I got a bag of peanuts sitting here. I need to clean that up.
Well, it's my lab's a little bit of a mess today too, but I had a lot of projects going on. So, hey, thanks again, and everybody. I hope you come back for the next episode of the Industrial Wi-Fi Shop.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and we hope you join us on our next episode of the Industrial Wi-Fi Shop.